The invitation arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon, thick cream paper sealed with silver wax. Mara Ellison recognized her sister's handwriting immediately. She almost threw it away. 4 years, Celeste Ellison had made Mara's unmarried life a source of entertainment. At family dinners, Celeste asked when she planned to finally find someone. At parties, she introduced her as my sister who is still waiting for her miracle. Once, after Mara quietly declined a blind date, Celeste had laughed in front of their relatives and said, "At this rate, she'll be the only woman at my wedding without a partner." Now that wedding was 3 weeks away. Mara opened the invitation. "Celeste Ellison and Adrian Vale request the pleasure of your company." She stared at the words, wondering why Celeste had bothered inviting her at all. Her mother had warned her not to expect kindness. "Celeste wants you there for a reason," Nadia told her. "What reason?" "I don't know." Mara folded the invitation. "Then I'll find out." On the wedding day, Belrose Estate glittered beneath a cloudless sky. White roses lined the entrance, musicians played beneath an arched pavilion, and hundreds of guests moved through the gardens in expensive clothes. Mara arrived alone. She wore a midnight blue dress she had saved for years to buy, simple but elegant. She had no desire to compete with her sister. She only wanted to attend quietly, offer her congratulations, and leave. Celeste had other plans. The moment Mara entered the reception hall, her sister spotted her from across the room. Celeste's smile widened. There she is. Her bridesmaid, Tessa, whispered something into her ear. Celeste laughed. Then she crossed the room. "You actually came." Mara looked at her carefully. "You invited me." "I know." Celeste glanced at Mara's dress. "I'm surprised you dressed so well." Mara ignored the insult. "Congratulations." Celeste leaned closer. "Enjoy tonight. I arranged something special for you." A chill passed through Mara. Before she could respond, Celeste walked onto the small stage and tapped the microphone. The music stopped. Every conversation faded. "Everyone," Celeste announced brightly, "I want to introduce someone very important to me." Mara's stomach tightened. Celeste pointed directly at her. "My older sister, Mara." Polite applause filled the room. Then Celeste continued. "She came here alone tonight." Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Celeste smiled wider. "So I thought we'd help her." A waiter appeared carrying a silver tray. On it lay a cheap plastic bouquet surrounded by tiny cards. One card read, "Desperate and still waiting." Laughter erupted. Mara felt the humiliation strike like a physical blow. Celeste lifted the bouquet. "Don't be shy, Mara. Every wedding needs a bouquet toss." Someone shouted, "Give it to the single woman." More laughter followed. Mara looked at the faces around her. Some were amused. Others looked embarrassed. Nobody stopped Celeste. Nobody except one man. Adrian Vale, the groom, had risen from his chair. His expression was stunned. "Celeste," he said quietly. She turned. "What?" "This wasn't part of the wedding. It was a joke." Adrian stared at Mara, then back at his bride. "No, it wasn't." Celeste's smile faltered. Mara expected her sister to apologize. Instead, Celeste stepped closer and whispered, "You always wanted attention. Now you have it." Mara looked into her sister's eyes. Something inside her finally hardened. She placed the plastic bouquet back on the tray. "I came here to celebrate you," she said softly. "I didn't realize you needed to destroy me to feel important." The room went silent. Celeste's face reddened. Then an elderly woman rose slowly from the front table. Evelyn Vale, Adrian's grandmother, walked toward them with her cane. She looked at Mara first, then at Celeste. "I believe," Evelyn said, "we should all sit down." Celeste swallowed. "Grandmother, this doesn't concern you." Evelyn's gaze sharpened. "Oh, my dear." She glanced toward the guests. "It concerns me very much." Mara didn't know what Evelyn intended to reveal. But judging by Celeste's sudden fear, she suspected her sister did. Evelyn's words left the reception hall unnaturally quiet. Celeste forced a laugh. "Grandmother, you're making this far more serious than it is." Evelyn studied her without blinking. "Am I?" Mara remained beside the table, uncertain whether she should stay or disappear. She had spent years learning how to endure Celeste's insults without revealing how deeply they hurt. But Evelyn's intervention had changed the atmosphere. The guests were no longer laughing. They were watching Celeste, waiting for an explanation. Adrian approached his grandmother. "What are you trying to say?" Evelyn turned toward him. "Your bride has spent this entire evening trying to make another woman feel worthless. I want you to ask yourself why." Celeste's face tightened. "Because Mara is always so difficult," she snapped. "She acts superior because she thinks being quiet makes her better than everyone else." Mara finally looked at her sister. "I've never thought that." "You don't have to say it," Celeste replied. "Everyone can see it." "No," Adrian said. "Everyone can see what you've been doing." Celeste stared at him. "You're taking her side?" "I'm taking the truth's side." The words landed harder than any accusation. Celeste turned toward the guests, desperate to regain control. "Fine. Maybe I went too far. But Mara has always been jealous of me." Mara shook her head. "Jealous of what?" "Everything." Celeste's voice rose. "My life. My friends. My career. Now my marriage." Mara almost laughed, but the sadness in her chest stopped her. "You have no idea what I wanted from you." "Then tell me." "I wanted a sister." Celeste fell silent. Mara continued, her voice steady. "I wanted someone who would be happy when good things happened to me. Someone I could call when I was afraid. Someone who didn't measure my worth by whether a man wanted me." For the first time, Celeste had no immediate response. Adrian looked at Mara with quiet sympathy. Evelyn, however, was still watching Celeste. "There is something else," she said. Celeste's expression changed. "Grandmother, please. You knew about Mara's work." Mara frowned. "What work?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "The children's library in Northbridge." Mara stiffened. "I volunteered there." "You did far more than volunteer," Evelyn replied. "You spent 2 years restoring hundreds of damaged books. When the heating failed, you paid for repairs. When 3 children couldn't afford school supplies, you bought them without telling anyone." Celeste looked confused. "What does that have to do with this?" "Everything." Evelyn turned toward the guests. "My late husband created a charitable foundation before he died. He instructed me to find someone capable of carrying it forward. Someone compassionate enough to serve without demanding recognition." Mara's heart began pounding. Evelyn looked directly at her. "I chose Mara." A murmur moved through the hall. Celeste stared at her grandmother. "You can't be serious." "I am." "You chose her." "Yes. But she's not even famous." Evelyn finished. "Wealthy. Connected." Celeste said nothing. Evelyn's expression softened. Those qualities were never part of the requirement. Adrian looked at Mara. "Congratulations." Mara barely heard him. She was still trying to understand why Evelyn had noticed things she had deliberately kept private. Then a voice came from behind her. "Mara." She froze. There was something familiar in that voice, something buried beneath 10 years of memories. She slowly turned. A tall man stood near the entrance, rain still glistening on the shoulders of his dark suit. His eyes were fixed on her with an emotion she had never forgotten. Her breath caught. "Jonah!" Celeste's face suddenly lost its color. Adrian noticed. "Celeste." She didn't answer. Jonah took 1 step forward. "I've been trying to find you for 10 years. Mara stared at him. "I thought you left. I thought you didn't want me." Her eyes narrowed. "What?" Jonah reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn envelope. I wrote to you after I left. 23 times. Mara's heart stopped. I never received them. Jonah looked toward Celeste. I know. Silence fell again. Celeste took a step backward. Mara followed her gaze. Celeste. Her sister's lips trembled. Jonah's voice was quiet. She told me you wanted nothing to do with me. Mara stared at Celeste in disbelief. You knew. Celeste couldn't answer. And suddenly Mara understood that the cruelest thing her sister had done was not the bouquet, the insults, or the public humiliation. It was the 10 years she had stolen from her. Mara's voice dropped to a whisper. What else did you take from me? Mara stared at Celeste, unable to understand how the sister she had grown up beside could have concealed something so cruel for so long. Celeste's lips parted, but no explanation came. You knew Jonah was trying to reach me? Her sister looked toward the guests. I was protecting you. Mara almost laughed. From what? From him. Jonah stepped forward. That's a lie. Celeste's composure cracked. You don't know what happened between us. I know enough, Jonah replied. I know I wrote to Mara. I know I called her house. I know every message disappeared. Mara's hands trembled. Why would you do that? Celeste's eyes filled with tears, but Mara could not tell whether they came from guilt or anger. Because you were always the one everyone trusted, Celeste whispered. Even when you had nothing, people admired you. Mother praised your kindness. Father defended you. And Jonah. She stopped. Jonah loved you. The confession silenced her. Celeste looked at Mara. I couldn't stand it. Mara felt the last piece of the puzzle fall into place. The insults had never been about her being single. They had been about Celeste's fear that Mara was worthy of love without having to fight for it. You stole 10 years from me, Mara said. Celeste lowered her head. I know. No. You don't. Mara's voice remained quiet, but every word carried years of pain. You stole choices I could never make again. You let me believe someone I loved had abandoned me. Jonah moved beside her. I should have come back sooner. You tried, Mara whispered. I should have tried harder. Before Mara could answer, a sharp crash came from the garden. Everyone turned. Celeste had stumbled through the open doors. She was crying as she hurried toward the fountain. Adrian followed. Celeste, stop. She kept walking. I ruined everything. Her heel caught against the wet stone. She slipped. Her body struck the edge of the fountain before she fell into the deep basin. Adrian lunged after her, but the slick stones sent him crashing to his knees. Mara reacted without thinking. She grabbed a thick decorative rope hanging beside the fountain and threw it toward Celeste. Grab it! Celeste surfaced, choking. I can't. Yes, you can. Mara lowered herself onto the stone edge. Jonah seized her waist. Don't lean any farther. I have her. Celeste caught the rope. Mara pulled with everything she had. Jonah helped. Adrian reached down and grabbed Celeste's arm. Together, they dragged her onto the grass. Celeste lay there shaking. Mara knelt beside her. You're safe. Celeste stared at her in disbelief. Why did you save me? Mara looked at the woman who had spent years trying to make her feel worthless. Because I won't become cruel just because you were. Celeste covered her face and began sobbing. Adrian stood several feet away, staring at the wedding ring on his finger. I can't do this. Celeste slowly looked up. Adrian. I thought I was marrying the woman I loved. He removed the ring. But tonight I saw someone I don't recognize. Celeste's face crumpled. You're leaving me? I should have left before the ceremony. He placed the ring on the table beside them. I was so busy admiring your confidence that I never noticed how much of it depended on hurting people. Celeste had no defense left. The guests began leaving quietly. The wedding was over. Yet Mara remained beside her sister until the ambulance arrived. When Celeste was finally taken inside to be examined, Jonah found Mara alone beneath the oak tree. "You didn't have to stay." "Yes, I did. Even after everything." Mara looked toward the house. "I didn't save her because she deserved it." Jonah smiled gently. "Then why?" "Because I deserved to remain the person I knew I was." He reached into his coat and produced a worn envelope. Mara recognized her name immediately. "This is one of my letters? My first one." She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were words written 10 years earlier. Words she had spent a decade believing had never existed. Her eyes filled with tears. Jonah watched her carefully. "I never stopped loving you." Mara looked up. "Neither did I." For the first time that night, she smiled. Then, from inside the estate, Evelyn appeared at the doorway. "Mara." Mara turned. Evelyn held out a small velvet box. "There is one final thing you need to know." Mara walked toward her. "What is it?" Evelyn opened the box. Inside was an old brass key. "The foundation isn't the only thing my husband left behind." Mara looked at the key. "What does it open?" Evelyn smiled. "Something your family has kept from you for years." Mara's smile disappeared. "Something that belongs to you." Mara followed Evelyn through a quiet corridor into the oldest room in Belrose estate. The walls were lined with portraits, but Evelyn stopped before one of a stern man holding a leather-bound book. She inserted the brass key into a narrow lock hidden beneath the frame. A panel clicked open. Behind it was a small wooden box. Mara stared at it. "What is this?" "Your father's," Evelyn said. Mara's breath caught. "My father never mentioned you." He wanted to, but Celeste's mother persuaded him to stay silent about certain matters after his death. Evelyn opened the box. Inside were photographs, legal papers, and a handwritten letter bearing Mara's father's signature. Mara unfolded it with trembling fingers. He had written that he had discovered Celeste had been intercepting Jonah's letters. He had intended to confront her, but before he could, his illness worsened. He had asked Evelyn to protect Mara's future if the truth ever came out. At the bottom was one final sentence. "Your daughter has always possessed the strength to build something better than what we gave her." Mara pressed the letter against her chest. For years, she had wondered whether her father had been disappointed in her quiet life. Now she knew the truth. He had believed in her. Evelyn placed another document beside the letter. "This estate has a neglected community wing. Your father wanted it turned into a library and learning center." Mara looked at the papers. "You're giving this to me? I'm asking you to finish what he began." Mara's eyes filled with tears. She had entered the wedding expecting humiliation. Instead, she had found a purpose her father had left waiting for her. The next morning, Celeste came to see her. She looked exhausted, stripped of the confidence she had worn like armor. "I came to apologize." Mara said nothing. Celeste took a breath. "I blamed you for everything I was afraid I wasn't." Her voice broke. "You were kind without trying to impress anyone. People trusted you. Jonah loved you. Even grandmother saw something in you that I couldn't see in myself." Mara studied her. "Why did you think destroying me would make you happier?" "I don't know." Celeste lowered her eyes. "I only know that it made me miserable." Mara did not pretend the damage could disappear overnight. "I forgive you," she said. "But forgiveness doesn't erase what happened." "I understand." Celeste looked toward the documents on the table. "Can I help with the library?" Mara hesitated. Then she nodded. "You can start by bringing books." Celeste smiled through tears. "I can do that." Months passed. The neglected wing became a beautiful library filled with sunlight, shelves, children's paintings, and comfortable reading corners. Celeste volunteered there every Saturday, while Mara managed the foundation with Evelyn's guidance. Jonah remained beside Mara through every change. One evening, after the library's first official opening, He took her to the garden. "I have something for you." Mara smiled. "Another secret? Hopefully a better one." He took her hand. "I spent 10 years thinking I had lost the woman I loved." Mara's eyes softened. "I spent 10 years thinking you had forgotten me." "I never did." He knelt beneath the oak tree. "This time, I'm not leaving anything unsaid." He opened a ring box. "Mara, will you marry me?" She laughed through sudden tears. "You're asking me after all this? I've learned that waiting can cost you everything." She held out her hand. "Yes." As Jonah slipped the ring onto her finger, applause erupted behind them. Mara turned. Evelyn stood with Celeste, Adrian, and dozens of children from the new library. Celeste was crying. Mara laughed. "You planned this." Evelyn smiled. "Your sister insisted." Celeste stepped forward. "I thought you deserved a wedding celebration that wasn't designed to hurt you." Mara embraced her. For the first time in years, the sisters held each other without competition, resentment, or fear. The woman Celeste had once tried to humiliate had become the heart of the family. The sister Celeste had tried to make feel unwanted had built a place where no child would ever feel unwanted. And the woman Mara had believed had abandoned her had returned, not merely to apologize, but to love her openly and without hesitation. As the garden lights glowed above them, Mara looked at the ring on her finger and smiled. Her sister's wedding had begun as a cruel attempt to prove Mara was alone. Instead, it had exposed the truth. Mara had never been the woman without a future. She had simply been waiting for the truth to find her. And when it finally did, it brought her something far greater than revenge. It brought her home.